screenwriters of these 10 episodes, you were faced with the challenge, which everybody knows how it ends. And today, everybody watched episode 10, where everybody really knows how it ends. So how did you go about writing episode 10 tonight, knowing that the news of the episode was the verdict, but everybody knew the verdict?
Well, it's funny. There's been kind of a joke on social media for the past couple months about, no, don't spoil it, don't spoil it. And in all honesty, it actually scared us in the sense that we knew that we were totally enthralled by this story. We knew that we knew enough information and things that people didn't know that we could make those first 9 episodes really compelling. But when you come down to the verdict, everyone knows the verdict. And what we found was, strange enough, by knowing what happens, it actually made it more powerful. It was in a weird sense like United 93 or Titanic, where knowing what the outcome was, it was sort of this slow motion, train wreck that was just happening, and you sort of saw, how people's lives were about to be ruined. And we always looked at this story as kind of a tragedy for all the characters, except I think Mr. Cochran. That maybe Cochran might be the only character that comes out with some victory.
10 years later, he was dead.
That there's a phrase we use in one of the
Just say it.
Yeah, that he used OJ as an imperfect vessel to get a bigger message out. But even OJ, Scott can talk about this very eloquently. From your book, you have a chapter called Being OJ. You talked about OJ being OJ. That was OJ's job. He was a celebrity that people just loved and had such affection for. And even though he got the not guilty verdict, he could never go back to being OJ.
Scott?
I think you just said it.
They've only been working together for about 40 years, so they do sort of speak with each other. To me, the moment that set this series apart, literally from the first scene, is the first scene, which is nothing to do with OJ, but it is scenes of the Rodney King riots. And Ryan, talk about the decision to put that scene first. Just as if you don't remember, it's news footage of the Rodney King riots.
Well, that was all, my involvement came after Nina and Brad and Larry and Scott. So I asked my agent to send me the impossible script that could not get greenlit. And he said, I know exactly what they are. And he sent me the first 2 scripts of OJ. So before I even read them, I had a perception of, I kind of know what this is going to be. And that was scripted. That was in Larry and Scott's brilliant first episode, which to me made me sit up a little straighter because I thought, okay, this team has a real take of this material that's not going to be what you would expect. So I would ask Nina and Brad about that because it really came from a very long, they worked for a year and a half, I believe, on these scripts before we went into pre-production. So a lot of thought and a lot of time went into the crafting of that.
Nina and Brad?
I'll tell you really quickly. Nina and I were shooting a movie together in Vancouver, and we're big fans of great long-form journalism. And I was at a used bookstore, and I saw Jeff Toobin's book, The Run of His Life, The People vs. O.J. Simpson.
In a used book?
He was on set. It was 50 cents.
What kind of royalties you get from used books?
Like, nothing.
It was in the Emily discounted.
I'd say you come out ahead, though.
No, it's worked out.
But I wasn't interested in the OJ case. I'm just a big fan of Jeff's writing at The New Yorker, what he writes about the Supreme Court, or about the recount in the year 2000. And so I bought it, and I was sitting on set, and I was flipping through it next to Nina, and I said, oh my God, you gotta read this. This is this like journalistic page turner. It's the best Vanity Fair article you've ever read, and it's not about OJ. It's about the lawyers who tried this case and what happened to them, what happened to America during this year, but also it sees OJ through the prism of not just the beginning of celebrity culture, but also through race. And that race was part of this trial from the very beginning, even though for some white people it sort of snuck up on them. Some of them didn't realize about race until the verdict. And that was the prism that Jeff had looked at it from. And then we just read it and put it aside. A couple years later, when we did our deal at FX, we were meeting with Gina Balian, who's an executive there, and she asked us if there was anything we read that we liked, and it just came to our head. There's this great book about the O.J. Simpson case, and she said, "We'll buy that." Now, we're feature producers.
Good choice, Gina.
Yes, and that doesn't happen in features. Like, you know, it's so difficult in features right now to get things done, and we had to call your agent to find out if it was available. We made a list of writers, dream writers, and we said we needed Alexander and Karaszewski type, and we realized that's not really a type. There's only these two guys, and we rented them. And they said yes. They saw the same things we did, and we really worked these scripts. We put together a very small writer's room, a quarter of people, especially Joe Robert Cole, who wrote episodes 5 and 8, and he did he wrote Marsha, which is one of my favorite episodes of the series. It just was, you know. And we were able to have a writer's room where for 8 weeks, as a small group of people, we broke down all the episodes. We made a 100-page Bible, went out to write them. And from the very beginning, John Landgraf at FX had challenged us. We knew it was about race, but he wanted us to foreground that. And Scott and Larry came up with the idea of putting that at the beginning, the Rodney King beating. So anybody who's watching, especially African Americans who are watching, they wouldn't think, wait, do these people understand
You can't
what
tell
this is about? You need to
have to
understand what's
start
happening in
that
LA.
is what informs.
It was about context.
Yeah.
It was putting everything into, the O.J. Simpson trial was a reaction to the Rodney King verdict. And when we initially pitched that to FX, I think a lot of people had that reaction, like, wait a second, well, you're talking about O.J., but you're also talking about Rodney King. How does that connect? But we're like, it would take a couple episodes to actually make that connection.
But and I think that was also part of it being the big 10-hour ambitious bite we were going to take, which was we could have this big umbrella, which is it's about the O.J. trial, but it's really going to be about race in America and about this bad relationship between black Americans and police departments, and problems that never go away. And we could deal with that. And then once you're saying you got 10 hours, then you can deal with the gender issues that Marsha was dealing with, and you can deal with how celebrities get treated differently than civilians. And you could look at so many ideas with this giant 10-hour presentation.
And Cuba, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
I asked you guys a question, and maybe it's too simplistic, but I've always been fascinated when you have as many characters as this project offers. How do you so brilliantly differentiate the voice of each? Because we live as actors for our own voice and our own character, and great writing is what we wait for. And you guys so brilliantly made us so that you couldn't cross-collateralize anything we said or did. Anything. Where, you
Well, taking up the director that we worked with, Robert Altman. We talked about Altman a lot when we were writing, in the sense that when you watch something like Nashville, there is no supporting character. So we thought, particularly with the O.J. Simpson trial, every person involved thought they were starring in their own show. And so when Nathan Lane came on, or Robert Morris's Dominic Dunn, no matter how much screen time they'd have, when they came on, it's the Dominic Dunn show.
But it's so brilliant to know that, because there are beautiful, brilliant writers like Woody Allen, but you can hear the voice in almost every character. They're similar.
I mean, we are, maybe frustrated bad actors. So we do play out the parts in the room. Right. And so we're trying to give everyone a voice, but giving Bob Shapiro a voice was possibly the most fun. Anyone who can be introduced, name-dropping Marlon Brando 7 words into a scene.
Let me just go back to the racial context, because I think what makes these stories so rich and complicated is that people don't fit into the slots you might think. O.J. Simpson was someone who did his best not to identify with certainly the civil rights movement or any sort of political, or yet he turns out to be someone who is the beneficiary of this long-term tension. And your character over the 10 hours evolves and recognizes the importance of the racial issue. I mean, talk about what that experience is.
Oh, it's interesting. I never really thought of it that way, that he doesn't identify. I think he, from his upbringing, from his family, his first wife, his relationships, his experiences in life, he lived the black experience.
You've been black for long enough?
That's right. And then it's funny to think, but it's not that he doesn't identify. He felt like he graduated outside of it and stopped being black and became green at some point. And in this, elevated frame of mind, he thought he was above it all. To some extent.
And there is, I mean, I admit that I am not sympathetic to O.J. Simpson, but in the episode you just saw, when he says, let's get a table at Riviera, the country club, and it becomes clear that he's not welcome at Riviera, and that his life is going to change. I mean, there is poignancy in that, and there is a recognition that, anyone who has been, sometimes I used to hear at the time, it's worse for OJ that he was acquitted because anyone who said that has never been inside a prison. Because it is not worse for him. But it was not what he wanted to return to his own life, and even that first night, it was clear he couldn't.
That's right. And I think it always culminated so beautifully in episode 10, where you see him staring up at his statue. And it was so representative of a life he doesn't live anymore. I think when Ryan and I had that first meeting, and we talked about, he says to me, Cuba, how do you think you would, you're a celebrity and he's a celebrity. You remember that, Ryan? How do you think you're a celebrity? Bring it into this.
British, son.
I just thought it was...
Wait, can you play out the scene some more?
I'm trying to save my career. No,
The council. It was really always a good idea.
No, but seriously, as much as I could be without another drink, it was that moment of recognition for me that when we had that conversation, Ryan was like, you're an actor who is beloved like OJ was beloved, and we're going to bring that into your performance by way of you being cast and then tear the shit out of it.
I did that.
But Ryan, that's what I was going to say, because when Ryan came into the show, we had 2 episodes written in this brilliant Bible, and we weren't getting programmed. It was so ambitious.
Yeah.
And he came in, and we got this phone call that was, Ryan Murphy's read your scripts, and he wants to meet with you. And we were at Fox, and so we knew you were going to say yes to him. But what was amazing is when we all sat down with him, he loved the same things we loved about this and understood it. And he said, I want to make Network, which is something we'd all referenced all along, the Sidney Lumet films from the 1970s. And what he then invigorated in the project, which was, just this sense of the depth of character and how to get emotion out of every scene and how to go for the emotional truth at every moment, and also how to put together, especially for Nina and myself when we were TV virgins, how to put together a TV apparatus and make something incredible. And it was a real collaboration. I mean, Cuba's forgotten that I was in the room with Ryan.
I don't know, he was there. Ryan's in the room. It's like, Jesus, you don't look at this.
Yes.
Now, Ryan, or Jesus, I also heard you refer